وأما النسخ فمعناه لغة الإزالة، وقيل معناه النقل من قولهم نسخت ما في هذا الكتاب، أي نقلته، وحده هو الخطاب الدال على رفع الحكم الثابت بالخطاب المتقدم على وجه لولاه لكان ثابتا مع تراخه عنه. ويجوز نسخ الرسم وبقاء الحكم، ونسخ الحكم وبقاء الرسم، ونسخ إلى بدل وإلى غير بدل، وإلى ما هو أغلط إلى ما هو أخف. ويجوز نسخ الكتاب بالكتاب، ونسخ السنة بالكتاب، ونسخ السنة بالسنة. ويجوز نسخ المتواتر بالمتواتر منهما، ونسخ الآحد بالعاهد وبالمتواتر، ولا يجوز النسخ المتواتر بالعاهد.
The author rahimahullah now goes into abrogation. Abrogation, nasakh. Brothers, abrogation means Allah makes a ruling on the people, and then after that ruling gets uplifted, and another ruling comes to remove that ruling. The nasakh, brothers and sisters, it only happens to rulings and not statements. النسخ إنما يقع في الأحكام ولا الأخبار. The nasakh happens to rulings and not statements. You can't say to a person, brother, yesterday I was in Qusais, and then tomorrow you go, I abrogated it. I wasn't in Qusais, I was in Abu Dhabi. Is that correct? It's kadhib, it's a lie. So the only thing that nasakh can happen to is what? Ahkam. Brother, tomorrow you have to bring with you this kitab. Next day you come, you know what? You don't have to bring it. That's permissible. That's called naskhul hukum. A ruling that was made upon you has now been lifted. Okay? And evidence for that is إن يكن منكم 20 صابر يغلبوا 200. The battlefield and the believers, when they were fighting, the first time the jihad was which way? Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, He says, إن يكن منكم 20 صابرون يغلبوا 200 وإن يكن منكم 100 يغلبوا 1000 من الذين كفروا بأنهم قوم لا يفقهون. Allah says 20 of you men have to fight with 200 of the disbelievers. How many each man? 10. So each man has to stand and hold his ground if 10 people come and he can't run. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا لقيتم فئة فاثبتوا واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون. فاثبتوا. You're not allowed to run. They're not allowed to run. 10 men are around you and they put you in the middle. At the beginning of Islam, the Sahabas were told you can't run. فإذا لقيتم فئة فاثبتوا. And Allah says in another ayah, ومن يتول, and Allah says, ومن يولهم يومئذ دبره إلا متحرفا لقتال أو متحيزا إلى فئة فقد باء بغضب من الله. They were not allowed to run away from the meeting of the army. So imagine 10 men, you have to be, you can't live on KFC and Burger King and have to be well trained. And you have to have strong iman, which is the first base that they had. 10 men. Then Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala said to the companions, what did He say to them? He said, الآن خفف الله عنكم. Now Allah has made it easy for you. وعلم أن فيكم ضعفا. And Allah knows there's in you a bit of weakness. 10 men per person is a bit hard for you guys. Imagine us. Imagine us. فإن يكن منكم 100 صابرة يغلبوا 200. Now, each man he has to hold down 2 people best. Are we all together? 2 people. 2 people come your way, that's it. So the ruling got changed. Sahih? The first ruling was hard, and then a softer ruling came. This is called nasakh, abrogation. And one of the greatest forms of nasakh is this ayah that I just mentioned to you guys. Like in the nasakh is of types, write this down. The abrogation is of types. It's of what? It's of types. It's 3 types. Nasakh is 3 types. The first type is أقسام النسخ باعتبار متعلقه. متعلقه. أقسام النسخ باعتبار متعلقه. Nasakh in terms of what it is connected to. In terms of what it's connected to. And what's that? That's the first type, right? Abrogation in terms of what it's connected to. And that's two types. The first type is two types. نسخ الرسم وبقاء الحكم. The ruling is uplifted and the wording still remain. We'll still read the ayah where Allah says, إن يكن منكم 20 صابر يغلبون 200. Even though the ruling has been lifted, the wording still remains. We'll still have to read this word. The second type of the first type is نسخ الحكم وبقاء الرسم. The ruling is abrogated and the wording remains. Now the first one is that's the first one, sorry. The removing of the ruling and the wording remaining. The second one is the removal of the wording but the ruling remaining. The wording has been lifted and the wording is gone, but the ruling still remains. An example for that is the qadiyatul rajm, the stoning. There used to be an ayah in the Quran that used to say, الشيخ والشيخة إذا زنيا فرجموهما البتة نكالا من الله والله عزيز حكيم. I think that's how it used to be. The ayah got lifted. The wording is not read anymore. It's nowhere in the Quran. Okay? But what remains? Mas'alatul rajm still remains. The issue of stoning still remains as a hukum, as a ruling, like not in terms of recitation. No, we don't read it. There's no place in the Quran to read it. Okay, the second type now. The second type of abrogation. The first type of abrogation was abrogation in terms of what it's connected to, and that was two types. We finished that one now. We're now moving on to the second one. The second one is أقسام النسخ باعتبار المنسوخ إليه. Abrogation in terms of what it's abrogated to.
What about in terms of نسخ الحكم والرسم?
No, that doesn't exist. How are we going to know it exists anyways? If the hukum goes and the rasm goes, how would that exist? The hukum is gone, the rasm is gone. Who would ever mention that? There's no hukum in this issue and there's no rasm.
Because in the last edition of the
I did mention it. Some of the scholars, they do say that there exists. Like in this qawl, we're not going to strengthen it now. We're not going to strengthen it. The second type is أقسام النسخ باعتبار المنسوخ إليه. The abrogated in terms of what is abrogated to, and it's two types. It's two types. Abrogated to something that will exchange it. Sah? Meaning this gets abrogated, something else will replace it. And the second one is something that there will be no replacement for. The ruling will be uplifted, no replacement. It won't be replaced. Sah? There's no replacement. And one there is a replacement. The one that has a replacement is two types. It can either be replaced towards something harder. The ruling is made even harder than what it was before. Okay? And an example for that is وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ فِدْيَةٌ طَعَامُ مِسْكِينٍ فَمَنْ تَطَوَّعَ خَيْرًا فَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَهُ وَأَنْ تَصُومُوا خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. This took away the ayah which is فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْ. Anyone who saw the month, let him fast. This ayah came and it made it wajib. So then the new ruling that came is harder than the old one. The old one is softer. So that's one happens. And the other one is إِلَى بَدَلٍ أَخَفَّ. It gets replaced with an easier ruling. And the evidence of that one is the one I just gave you. Surah Al-Anfal, إِن يَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ 20 صَابِرٌ يَغْلِبُوا 200. And the next ruling that came was easier. And there's a third one, which is equal to it. It can be replaced to a ruling that's equal to it. Like for example, the turning of Baytul Maqdis to Baytullah al-Haram. It's the same, it doesn't change anything. Even though it was softer on the heart of the Prophet ﷺ. But turning away from that direction to that direction, being abrogated. قوله تعالى فولي وجهك شطر المسجد الحرام وحيث ما كنتم فولوا وجوهكم شطره. It's called نسخ إلى بدل المسون. The abrogation here is equal to what was previously there. And by the way, brothers, the reason why abrogation happens is to show you, first of all, Allah is fa'alu lima yurid. Allah does whatever He wants. La yus'alu amma yaf'alu wa hum yus'alun. You can't question Allah and say, why do you do that? And sometimes it shows, one of the benefits also is to show you how kind and generous Allah is subhanahu wa ta'ala in making things that were hard on us, making it easier for us. It's also a benefit that we take from it. Because the ones that have been made easier are more than those that which were made harder. Are we all together? And the third benefit that we take from the nasakh is that how the Sharia observes us. Like the Quran and the Sunnah, it's not abstract. It doesn't have no understanding of the people it's talking to. Allah knows His creation. And He knows what's fit for them. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Are we all together? So this Sharia evolved through the Prophet's time, alayhi salatu wasalam. And it doesn't need to evolve today and changing, and it doesn't need being tampered with today and people saying, yeah, it has to be changed like Christianity changed and it has to reform in the society of today. No, it doesn't need that. The Lord that brought it after Nabi Muhammad died is the one who knows the world and how it's going to evolve to. Should we leave the questions to the end? Yeah? We leave the questions right to the end, inshallah. بإذن الله الكريم. We're about to finish.
فصل في التعارض. إذا تعارض نطقان فلا يخلو إما أن يكون عامين أو خاصين وأحدهما عاما والآخر خاصا أو كل واحد منهما عاما من وجه وخاصا من وجه. فإن كان عامين فإن أمكن الجمع بينهما فجمع وإن لم يمكن الجمع بينهما يتوقف فيهما وإن لم يعلم التاريخ. فإن علم التاريخ ينسخ المتقدم بالمتأخر وكذا إن كان خاصين. وإن كان أحدهما عاما والآخر خاصا فيخصص العام بالخاص. وإن كان أحدهما عاما من وجه وخاصا من وجه فيخصص العام عموم كل واحد منهما بخصوص الآخر.
The author, rahimahullah, talks about evidences that contradict one another. Hey, can we did. What do you want? We didn't do the third one. The third type of nasakh. The third type of nasakh that I mentioned is nasakh in terms of the thing that's abrogating. Nasakh in terms of the thing that's abrogating. And that is, it's two. The abrogator is either the Quran or it's the Sunnah. Those are the only two that can abrogate. Yeah? The abrogator is either the Quran or it's number two, it's the what? It's the Sunnah. And the Quran, which is the first one, it can abrogate the Quran and it can also abrogate the Sunnah. And the Sunnah can abrogate the Sunnah only. The author, this is the view he pushed. We won't argue with it right now. We'll leave it for another time. Now, the brother then read, Shaykh Abdul Samad read, Faslu Ta'arudi. Contradictions that seem to come from the Quran and the Sunnah. How do we work it out? We have evidences that we seem to think that they are contradicting. At-Ta'arud. This chapter, by the way, the concept of Ta'arud, this is where the scholars come in. They interfere. The Quran and the Sunnah, when it comes to those people who think it's contradicting one another, they have to know that the text is one of four situations. Write this down. One of four situations. Any contradiction that's mentioned for the Quran or the Sunnah is one of these four situations. Number one, التعارض بين دليلين عامين. Two texts which are both general. The second one is between two specific evidences. التعارض بين دليلين خاصين. Both of these two evidences are specific, they're not general. So the first one is that they're both general. The second one is that they're both specific. The third one is a general evidence contradicting or seemingly contradicting a specific evidence. So we have one general evidence and the second one is specific. So there's a seeming contradiction between a general evidence and a specific evidence. And the fourth situation is contradiction between a general evidence from one angle, but it's also specific, that same evidence is also specific from another angle. And it's contradicting what? then a text which is specific and general from one perspective to the other. So we have one evidence that from one angle when we look at it is specific, angle we look at it from is general. This one is also specific and that and is also general. They're contradicting one another. What do we do here? The author rahimahullah told us there's three ways to deal with it. Number one, al-jam'u. You bring them together. The second step is an-naskhu, abrogation. And the third one is at-tawaqquf, withhold. Simple as. The first one is al-ula al-jam'u. Try to bring them together. Try to bring them together. You couldn't bring them together. By the way, when we say you couldn't bring them together, it means you may not be able to do it, but somebody else might be able to do it. And then if we're not able to do the bringing them together, we go to abrogation. We'll say, we look at which one came first, and we'll say this one abrogates this one. The third one is at-tawaqquf, withhold. Just say, Allahu a'lam, I don't know how to work around here. I don't know. You use abrogation. You say, this abrogated this one. Okay, now we have an issue here. The first step was what? Al-jam'u. لأن the qa'idah is إعمال الدليلين أولى من إهمال أحدهما. The qa'idah is to implement both evidences takes precedence over choosing one over the other. That's the principle. إعمال الدليلين, taking both evidence, is first before you could even think of taking one and abandoning the other one. صح? ولذلك the poet Muhammad Abdullah ibn Hajj al-Shanqitiyu, he says in his 1,000 lines of poetry, he says وَالْجَمْعُ وَاجِبٌ مَتَى مَا أَمْكَنَ إِلَّا فَلِلْأَخِيرِ نَسْخٍ بُيِّنَا. وَالْجَمْعُ وَاجِبٌ مَتَى مَا أَمْكَنَ. If you can bring them together, try your hardest to bring them together. وَالْجَمْعُ وَاجِبٌ مَتَى مَا أَمْكَنَ إِلَّا فَلِلْأَخِيرِ نَسْخٍ بُيِّنَا. Then go to abrogation. So abrogation is the second step. Guess what? We have two imams now. One imam is able to bring the evidences together, and another one is saying, nope, abrogate this one from the other one. Of course, the one that's saying abrogation is first in timing. So let's say Imam Shafi'i resulted, Imam Malik, for example, he resulted to what? Abrogation, because he couldn't bring them together, so he ran to abrogation. Then Shafi'i came, and then Shafi'i said, I can bring them together. Who do we give precedence to? Imam Shafi'i. Are we all together? لأن Malik resulted to naskh. Shafi'i found a wajh of jam'ah. And of course the jam'ah is not always bringing one evidence and breaking his neck and then forcing this evidence with the other one, and it looks so artificial. That's not what's been spoken about here. There's a tariqah, there's a way that it should be done. Are we all together? If the way that you brought these two evidences seem to be hard to be understood and it looks so wrong, the ulama will mention this is not, it's called takalluf lal-jam'ah. They call it what? Takalluf. And it's not jam'ah. You're not bringing the two evidences together. Okay. The second one is an-naskhu. And I'll give you an example of a jam'ah. Jam'ah. An example for jam'ah is the Prophet ﷺ saw one man and he said to him, the Prophet said to in one narration, the Prophet ﷺ said, about touching a private part. The Prophet said, إِنَّمَا هِيَ بِضْعَةٌ مِنْكَ. That your private part is just a portion of you. It's nothing serious. Like it's just like your hand. Or it's like your arm. It's just like that. And in another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, مَنْ مَسَّ ذَكَرُهُ فَلْيَتَوَضَّأ. Anyone who touches his private part, let him do wudu. This seems to be going against each other, apparently. How do we reconcile between the two? Al-Imam Malik was able to reconcile between it when other Imams were saying abrogation, which one came first? This one. Which one was after? This one. And Imam Shafi'i easily reconciled between it. He said, if you touch your private part, it doesn't break your wudu unless you touch it with desires. So the one that said that anyone who touches his private part breaks his wudu is based on desires. And the other one is talking about what? When you don't do it with desires. Are we all together? Malik found wajhul jam'ah, a way to bring it to. Let's bring them two together. Are we all together? Naskh is not accepted at this particular point. Abrogation is not. It's not accepted. It's not accepted. The third step is at-tawaqquf. At-tawaqquf means the person says, I don't know. It's called al-imsak an al-hukm li ahadima ala al-akhari. I don't know. And this is the steps that it's done. That's how it's done. Yeah.
وأما الإجماع فهو اتفاق علماء العصر على حكم الحداثة، ونعني بالعلماء الفقهاء، ونعني بالحادثة الحادثة الشرعية. وإجماع هذه الأمة حجة دون غيرها لقوله صلى الله عليه وسلم: لا تجتمع أمتي على ضلالة. والشرع ورد بعصمة هذه الأمة، والإجماع حجة على العصر الثاني وفي أي عصر كان. لا يشترط انقراض العصر على الصحيح، فإن قلنا انقراض العصر شرط يعتبر قول من ولد في حياتهم وتفقه وصار من أهل الاجتهاد، ولهم أن يرجعوا عن ذلك الحكم. والإجماع يصح بقولهم وبفعلهم، وبقول البعض وفعل البعض، وانتشار ذلك وسكوت الباقين عنه.
The author rahimahullah goes to another issue known as al-ijma'. Ijma', consensus. Ijma' is one of the evidences in our religion. How many evidences do we have? 4. Al-kitab, wal-sunnah, wal-ijma', wal-qiyas al-sahih. The reason why we say qiyas al-sahih is because Iblis did qiyas, right? أَنَا خَيْرٌ مِّنْهُ خَلَقْتَنِي مِنْ نَارٍ وَخَلَقْتَهُ مِنْ طِينٍ. The qiyas of Iblis was batil. Huh? So what we say is qiyasun sahih. If the qiyas is done correctly, it's a delil in our religion. Ijma' is what, brothers? Ijma' is it is the agreement of the ulama of this ummah in a matter related to the religion after the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Do you see how we mentioned that? So the ijma' here is the ijma' of the ulama. No one takes into consideration the general mass. Are we all together? The issue is not the general mass or the layman. The ulama. They all agree on something. And the issue that they agree upon is an Islamic related issue. So if the ummah all agree that, for instance, a white car is better than a black car, for instance, this is not considered an ijma' according to Usuliyin, because it's a worldly issue. Are we all together? It's a religious issue. It also has to be after the Prophet's time, because ijma' at the time of the Prophet is not taken into consideration. The Prophet and the Quran is the only thing that's been taken. Are we all together? Also, it has to be in this ummah. It has to be all in this ummah. So the consensus that's taken from the Christians and the Jews, la. The ijma' has to be from this ijma' of this ummah, ummah Muhammad. Yani ummatul ijabah. Okay. What's the evidence for ijma'? Is there even an evidence to say that there is a consensus, that the consensus is an evidence? Is there evidence for that? There is. Allah says in the Quran, وَمَنْ يُشَاقِقِ الرَّسُولَ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا تَبَيَّنَ لَهُ الْهُدَى ويتبع غير سبيل المؤمنين نوله ما تولى ونسليه جهنم وساءت مصيرا ومن يشاقق الرسول, anyone who diverts from the path of the Prophet ﷺ, من بعد ما تبين له الهدى, after clear-cut evidence comes to him, ويتبع, and he follows a path other than the path of the believers. That's the ijma'. Other than the path of the believers. So that means other than the path of the believers here means the consensus of the ummah. Also Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala said in the Quran, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ. Allah says we made you, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. ما معنى أمة وسطا؟ العدل والخيار. We made you guys the just people. We made you guys the middle path. Meaning we made you guys a proof against everyone else. The day of judgment, we're going to be proof against all nations. Nuh is going to come to us and he's going to ask us, and he's going to say, did I convey the message to my people? And we will say yes. How do we know that? The Quran told us. So we are witnesses for other religions. Of course, we have to be our agreement has to also be a proof. Also, the Prophet said, لا تجتمع أمتي على ضلالة. The messenger said, my ummah do not agree upon misguidance. The Prophet said that, alayhi salatu wasalam. Then ijma' is a proof. It's a what? It's a proof. The ijma' is 2 types. Write this down. The ijma' is what? It's 2 types. Ijma' is 2 types. Ijma' which is sarih, a direct consensus. And a direct consensus is when I ask you, what do you think? And you say no, 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 no. Everyone says no. And I say, you know what? This is a consensus. It's clear everybody's on the same opinion. Are we all together? There's another type of ijma' which is called ijma' al-sukuti. I only ask one person and I say, brother, what do you think? And he goes, no. And I look at the rest of you guys and no one puts their hand up and it disagrees. That's also another consensus. Your consensus is by way of silence. Are we all together? The second type of consensus, which is ijma' sukuti, meaning one companion will say something, for instance, and all of the other companions are silent about it. When the Sahabas are really well known for, if they see someone say something wrong, they'll correct him. The fact that they went silent means that they kind of agree with that. And some scholars say, no, it doesn't mean that necessarily. How could that be the case? They may not have heard it. It may not have reached them. There's a back and forth on this issue, especially the second type of ijma' al-sukut. Lakin, if the ijma' al-sukuti, tatawul al-zaman happens, meaning the scholars, they mention that the Sahabas once said this and the rest was silent, and then the tabi'in transmitted and no one's still objecting, and then the tabi'in mention it and no one's still objecting, and no one's objecting to this whole opinion, it means that the ijma' al-sukuti is a proof now. Are we all together? If this view is only mentioned as one view and no one's actually going against it, this ijma' al-sukuti is a what? Is a proof. Okay? Now.
وقول الواحد من الصحابة ليس بحجة على غيره على القول الجديد.
Now the author goes into another evidence, which is the statement of a companion. Is it proof? قول الصحابي. We already know, brothers, al-kitab, wal-sunnah, wal-ijma', wal-qiyas al-sahih, they're evidences. But what about a sahabi statement? The author, rahimahullah, here he goes into the qawl of the sahabi. Brothers, write this down. The qawl of the sahabi is one of two situations. One of two situations. That they all agree on something. And this, of course, becomes a what? A proof. Yeah. The brother asked a good question. He said, is the consensus only restricted to the early generations, the three noble generations, or can there be a consensus today as well? What we say is the consensus is not closed. It can happen until the Day of Judgment. But to claim ijma' today is very hard. Okay, it's very hard to say that the ummah today unanimously agree upon this issue. Whereas it was easier at the first generation. How? Because they all lived in the same land. In Medina, a lot of them lived there. Little went outside it. Are we all together, brothers? So it's not that we're saying that there can't be consensus after the Sahabas and Tabi'in and Tabi'ut Tabi'in. There can be. But to claim it requires full the induction of knowing all of the people's opinions and whatnot. Plus nowadays, I'll be very honest with you, we don't have what we used to have once upon a time. What did we used to have back in the days? We had mujtahideen. We had ulama who reached the level of ijtihad. We all together. An alim by himself is a mujtahid. Today we don't have that at all. There is no mujtahid mutlaq in the ummah today. We have what, Rakim? There's no individual today we know, who is a mujtahid mutlaq. So what did the ummah result to? The ummah resulted to lajnat and hayat. It's not an individual fatwa now. It's more of a what? Congregational fatwa. Are we all together? That's why you hear هيئة كبار العلماء اللجنة الدائمة مثلا صح؟ رابطة عالم الإسلامي وهكذا. Are we all together, brothers? We don't have one individual by himself. Like Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, for example, by himself is equal to the 30 members of Lajna Da'ima in Saudi Arabia. By himself. Are we all together? Is Darul Fatwa if he brought a fatwa out. Are we all together? هذا حق لا مرية فيه. There's no debate about that. Like right now, they sit amongst themselves. The Kibar al-Ulama, 30 of them, they'll sit under a table and they will get the situation presented to them and it will be read to them and they'll read it and they'll research it and they'll go away for weeks and months and look into it before that fatwa comes out. Are we all together? And then within that, they argue amongst themselves how, I remember I read the life of Sheikh Abdul Aziz ibn Baz. Are you all there? Ibn Baz. And they asked Ibn Baz how, because remember Ibn Baz was the mufti. And he didn't, these fatwa that he used to make, or the fatwa that were made, he was on a board. So the board is the Lajna al-Da'ima. Lajna al-Da'ima was four or five men. One time it was 4, one time it was 5. And Ibn Baz was the Ra'is, he was the head of it. And the members were Abdullah ibn Qu'ud, Abdullah ibn Ghudayan, Bakr Abu Zayd, Sheikh Salih al-Fawzan, and the Na'ib. The person right after him was Abdul Razak al-Afifi. Are we all together? So I remember reading the life of Sheikh Ibn Baz, and how did you all agree on an opinion? La shakka, La shakka is hard. Everybody can't see eye to eye in one mas'ala. Remember when they bring the fatwa out, at the bottom it says all of these people's view is this. And it won't come out unless they all agree on it. Am I making sense? So Abdul Razak al-Afifi was the one who was the Na'ib, right under Ibn Baz. Are we all together? Are we all together? Abdul Aziz ibn Baz. And Abdul Razak al-Afifi said, whenever Sheikh Ibn Baz would bring a fatwa out, I would be the one who would hold on to my view if I held opposite to him. Listen to this. And I would say, no, Ibn Baz, no. And I would push my argument, and Ibn Baz would. And then what would happen is the view would be presented to the other members. Remember, Ibn Baz is the Ra'is, and Abdul Razak is right under him. He's the Na'ib, the vice. Are we all together? Yeah? He goes, after me and him go back and forth, the fatwa would be presented to the other remaining 4-5 members that were there. Sheikh Fawzan, Bakr Abu Zayd, Abdullah Ghudayan, Qu'ud. They would look into the fatwa. Whatever the majority becomes, he said, both of us will take that opinion. So if the remaining 4 took one opinion, for instance, me and Ibn Baz would have to choose the opinion of those 4 people. Would go to the view of the majority. One of the stories I read was the issue of the Saudi Arabia, when the fatwa came from the Mufti Sheikh Ibn Baz rahimahullah ta'ala on the issue of the American troops coming into Saudi Arabia, for instance, the fatwa that needed to be given, the fatwa that was meant to be given. Sheikh Ibn Uthaymin was called from Unayza, Qasim, and he was flying in. Who was flying in? Sheikh Ibn Uthaymin. So Sheikh Ibn Uthaymin made his way. He's on the flight, and he came a bit late, and the fatwa was already given. And he was meant to be part of because he was part of the Hayat Kibar al-Ulama. Sheikh Ibn Uthaymin, he was part of the Lajna al-Da'ima. And he got there and the fatwa was already given. And they passed the fatwa that the ulama looked at the issue, they revised the issue, they looked at the wada', the situation, and they came to the conclusion, they came to the ruling, Ibn Baz came to the ruling that it is permissible, and he gave the tawqi', Sheikh Ibn Baz. Ibn Uthaymin came in, he said, what happened? They said, the verdict has been passed. He said one question, imagine this. He goes, what is the view of Ibn Baz? Remember, they sometimes just collective opinion, they'll put it in. Are we all together? Even if they'll take the view of the Jumhur and they'll make that the fatwa. And everybody will write their name. So Shaykh Ibn Uthaymin wanted to know Ibn Baz's opinion from all of the people. And they said to him, he believes the permissibility. And Shaykh Ibn Uthaymin said, add my name to the list of the names of Shaykh Ibn Baz. I'm with him. So then, ana ala al-jawaz. And they said, but you haven't even looked at the issue and you haven't revised it and you didn't look at the whole fatwa and how you missed the majlis and the gathering of the niqash. And he said, I don't suspect Shaykh Ibn Baz. Deenuhu wa wara'ahu, sah? His religion, his tadayyun. And today you have people open their tongues to these ulama and belittle them and say what they want about them. Shaykh Ibn Baz did, and Shaykh Ibn Uthaymin added his name on the list without having to be there when the niqash was done. So that was that, inshallah ta'ala. So how do we go to that topic? The ummah. How do we go to the topic? Yeah? The ijma', how can ijma' be affirmed today? It's hard to say that there's an ijma' in it. It's very little, it's hard. It's very hard. But what we can say nowadays is organizations like Hayat Kibarul Ulama, Al-Lajna Da'ima, what do you call it? Harabidatu Alim al-Islami, Majma' al-Fiqh, all of these places, they do Istarul Fatwa. You can read those. They bring it out every yearly, you look at them, and then you can say the view of the overwhelming majority of ulama in the world is this. Sah? They hold this opinion. You can, but to say ijma' is very hard. Anyways, the qawl of a sahabi is not a proof. It's only a proof when they all unanimously agree on something. Do you guys get the point? We have an we have a khilaf, two opinions amongst the sahabas. There are two views. The tabi'een, when they came, they all saw eye to eye that one of the opinions were right and the other opinion is strange. They said it's wrong. And they all unanimously agreed upon one of those opinions. So we have a khilaf and then an ijma'. Are we forced to follow the ijma' that just came about? Or do we still say that this is a mas'ala min masail al-ikhtilaf? Do you get the question, by the way? Is the question clear? Yeah. No, it's a mas'ala ijtihadiyah. Once it becomes khilaf amongst the sahabas, it's ijtihadi. How should this text be understood? The sahabas differed two views. A group said yes, and a group said no. The tabi'een came and they all took the view that said no. They all saw that this one was clear. They all saw the view, this is clear, and then there's no reason to take this opinion. Mathalan. This is a long ongoing argument amongst the usuliyin. وَهَلْ يَمُوتُ الْقَوْلَ بِمَوْتِ قَائِلِهِ? Will the view die because of the people who said it died? You get it? Will the view die because of those who said it died? That's the question here. Am I making sense? Why do I feel like I'm not? I am, huh? So we'll leave that for another book, because it's not this book. This author didn't mention it, so we're not going to mention it. It's not in our book. Should we leave the questions to the end, brothers? We're just about to finish, and I've got half an hour to finish this book, because tomorrow we have to start Ilmiyyah.